The conference room fell silent as tears streamed down Victoria Chen's face. The billionaire CEO, known for her ice-cold negotiations and ruthless business decisions, stood trembling before a room full of her executives. But she wasn't looking at them. Her eyes were fixed on the janitor in the doorway, the man her staff had cruelly set up on a blind date with her as a joke. What she said next would shatter every assumption in that room and reveal a truth that had been hidden for 23 years. Marcus Williams pushed his cleaning cart through the marble lobby of Chen Industries every night at 9 p.m. sharp. At 52, his hands were weathered from decades of mopping floors and scrubbing toilets, but his eyes still held the gentle warmth that had defined him since childhood. Most people didn't see Marcus. He was part of the scenery, invisible in his navy blue uniform, just another face in the army of workers who kept the gleaming corporate tower spotless. But Sarah Chen saw him. The 28-year-old marketing associate had noticed how Marcus always hummed while he worked, how he left encouraging sticky notes on the desks of employees who stayed late, how he kept a secret stash of granola bars for the interns who missed dinner. When her co-workers plotted their cruel prank over happy-hour martinis, suggesting they set up the company's notoriously single CEO Victoria Chen with the old janitor as a joke, Sarah had tried to object. But she was new and her voice was drowned out by laughter. The setup was elaborate. They created a fake dating profile, photoshopped pictures, and somehow convinced both Victoria and Marcus that they'd matched on an exclusive dating app. Victoria, who'd been pressured by her mother to at least try online dating, had reluctantly agreed to one date. Marcus, a widower who'd lost his wife to cancer 5 years ago, had been encouraged by his daughter to get back out there. The restaurant was absurdly fancy, the kind of place where Marcus had never set foot as a customer. Several executives had secured a nearby table to watch the disaster unfold. They'd imagined Victoria's horror, Marcus's humiliation, and the office gossip that would sustain them for months. But something unexpected happened. Marcus arrived first, wearing his only suit, outdated but clean and carefully pressed. When Victoria walked in, stunning in a simple black dress, he stood immediately. The executives waited for the explosive recognition, but Victoria's face showed only confusion, then curiosity. "Marcus," she said softly. "Ms. Chen?" He seemed equally surprised. "I think there's been some kind of mistake. I thought I was meeting someone else." They both realized it simultaneously. They'd been set up. Victoria's sharp mind pieced it together in seconds. The too-good-to-be-true profile, the mysterious match, the suspicious restaurant choice. Marcus saw it in her eyes, the understanding dawning. He began to apologize, to excuse himself, but Victoria held up her hand. "Wait," she said. "We're already here, and I'm hungry." "Are you?" The executives watched, baffled, as the two sat down. What started as defiance against the prank became something else entirely. Marcus spoke about his daughter, Jessica, who was finishing medical school. Victoria talked about the pressure of running a company she'd inherited from her father. He told her about his wife, Maria, and how she'd made him promise not to stop living after she was gone. She confessed that she barely remembered the last time she'd had a conversation that wasn't about profit margins. "You leave those notes, don't you?" Victoria asked suddenly. "On people's desks." Marcus looked embarrassed. "Just little reminders. People work hard. Sometimes they need to know someone notices." "You left one on my desk," Victoria said quietly. 3 months ago. I just lost a major deal. I was sitting alone in my office at midnight, wondering if I was failing my father's legacy. And there was this yellow sticky note that said, "Tough days build strong people." "You've got this. You kept it?" Marcus asked, surprised. "It's in my wallet," Victoria admitted. At the executives' table, the laughter had died. They watched as their CEO, the woman who'd once fired 15 people in a single meeting, smiled genuinely for the first time any of them could remember. The date lasted 4 hours. They talked about loss and resilience, about raising children alone, about finding purpose in small acts of kindness. Marcus told her about the night shift philosophy he'd developed. Everyone who's still here late is fighting some kind of battle. Maybe they need extra money. Maybe they're proving themselves. Maybe they just don't want to go home to an empty apartment. Either way, they deserve to know someone sees them. Victoria shared something she'd never told anyone in the company. My father was a janitor. When he started this company, he cleaned offices at night and built his business during the day. He never forgot where he came from. But I did. Somewhere between the MBA and the corner office, I forgot that every person in my building has a story, has struggles, has dignity. When they finally stood to leave, Victoria asked, "Would you like to have coffee sometime? A real date, not a setup?" Marcus smiled. "I'd like that very much." But the story doesn't end there. The next morning, Victoria called an emergency meeting of her executive team. The same people who'd orchestrated the prank filed nervously into the conference room. They'd heard through the grapevine that the date hadn't gone as planned. Victoria stood at the head of the table, her expression unreadable. Then she asked someone to bring Marcus Williams up from the basement. When Marcus entered, confused and worried about his job, Victoria's composure cracked. 23 years ago, she began, her voice shaking. My father died in this building. He had a heart attack on the executive floor late at night when he was working alone. He was found by the night janitor who called 911, who stayed with him, who held his hand while he died. My father's last words, according to the paramedics, were telling this janitor about his daughter, about me, about how he hoped I'd continue his work. The janitor promised my dying father that he'd watch over his daughter if he ever got the chance. The room was completely still. Victoria looked at Marcus, tears streaming freely now. You didn't know who I was when you took the job here 7 years ago, did you? Chen is a common name. I've changed since I was a teenager, but you kept your promise anyway. Every late night I've worked, you've been there. Every sticky note, every granola bar, every time you hummed outside my office. When you could hear me crying, you were keeping a promise. To a dying man you stayed with for 17 minutes while he left this world. Marcus's eyes widened as his own memories clicked into place. Victoria, he whispered, you were the girl in his wallet. The college photo. You gave me that photo, Victoria said. At the hospital. You said my father wanted me to have it, that he was carrying it over his heart. The executive sat frozen as Victoria crossed the room and embraced Marcus. You were set up last night as a joke, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Because these people thought that a janitor wasn't worthy of a CEO. But the truth is, I've never met anyone more worthy. Marcus Williams embodies everything my father built this company to be: dignity, compassion, and service to others. She turned to face her executive team, her voice steady now. Effective immediately, I'm establishing the Williams Foundation, funded with $10 million from my personal wealth, to provide college scholarships for the children of service workers. And I'm creating a new position, Chief Culture Officer, responsible for ensuring that every employee in this building, regardless of their role, is treated with respect and recognition. She looked back at Marcus. If you'll accept it, the job is yours. Marcus was crying now, too. I don't have the qualifications. You have something better, Victoria interrupted. You have humanity. You see people. In this building, in this industry, that's the rarest qualification of all. The executives began to understand the magnitude of what they'd done. Not just the cruelty of their prank, but the blindness it represented. Sarah Chen, who'd objected from the start, was the first to stand and applaud. One by one, others joined, though some couldn't meet Victoria's eyes. Marcus did accept the position, though he insisted on keeping his janitorial duties one night a week. It keeps me grounded, he explained. Reminds me where I came from. As for the date, Victoria and Marcus did meet for coffee. And then dinner. And then more dinners. They didn't rush anything. Both had learned that the best things in life develop slowly, carefully, with attention and care. 6 months later, at the first Williams Foundation scholarship ceremony, Marcus stood beside Victoria as they handed out college scholarships to 20 students. One of them was the daughter of a woman who cleaned the 4th floor. Another was the son of a security guard. A third was the granddaughter of a parking attendant. In his acceptance speech, Marcus said something that would become the Foundation's motto. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Choose kindness. Choose to see people. Choose to believe that every person, regardless of their job title or income, has value that cannot be measured by a paycheck. Victoria added her own words. My father built this company with his hands and his heart. I almost forgot the second part. Marcus reminded me that success without humanity is just emptiness in an expensive suit. The people who keep our buildings clean, who keep us safe, who serve us, they're not invisible. And it's time we saw them clearly. The story spread far beyond the walls of Chen Industries. News outlets picked it up. Social media amplified it. But for Marcus and Victoria, the most important impact was closer to home. The culture of the company genuinely changed. Executives learned the names of the people who cleaned their offices. Security guards were invited to company events. Service workers received raises and benefits packages. And late at night, when Victoria worked late in her office, she'd hear Marcus humming in the hallway. Sometimes she'd emerge and walk beside him as he pushed his cart, talking about their days, making plans for the foundation, or simply sharing comfortable silence. In those moments, in that gleaming corporate tower, two people who'd been set up as a joke found something neither expected. A reminder that the most profound connections often happen when we're brave enough to see past surfaces and recognize the shared humanity underneath, the executives who'd planned. The prank learned something too, though it came at the cost of their careers. Victoria didn't fire them, but several chose to leave, unable to face what their joke had revealed about themselves. Those who stayed became the fiercest advocates for the foundation, perhaps seeking redemption, perhaps genuinely transformed. And every year, on the anniversary of that first blind date, Marcus and Victoria returned to the same restaurant. They'd become friends, deep, genuine friends bound by loss, memory, and a shared commitment to honoring the promise made by one good man to another on a night 23 years ago. Because sometimes the setup is the universe's way of bringing together exactly the people who need to meet. And sometimes the joke is on those who can't see that worth has nothing to do with titles and everything to do with the size of someone's heart.